No, I was gonna say one funny thing though is that like I do for some reason have like fitness going, and I was doing that Guinness World Record on solstice, and here I am, on like lap or hour 12, and my watch is saying time to roll, time for you to get up and move. And I'm like, come on, I've been going for 12 hours. But yeah, it
Hmm.
is amusing to have it tell me, yeah, you're just sitting around.
We didn't ask earlier, Ian, but what was your record?
So it was 184.4 miles is what I did in 24 hours.
Wow.
That's
It's a long,
insane.
it's a long way.
Which is just shy of the total distance I put on my chair in like 6 months of owning it. I think I've just ticked over like the 300-kilometer mark. So you did the same amount that I've done in 6 months in roughly 24 hours.
Well,
Yep.
I keep telling you, Taylor, you need to get up more.
Nah, I'm happy here.
Okay, next question. Let's keep with the health metrics. Health sharing. I don't know a lot about this, but it seems like a wonderful feature. That and medication tracking.
Totally. And yeah, I haven't used either of these features too much, but I really appreciate them offering them. As far as the medications tracking and reminders, I mean, it just seems like a little bit more robust reminder that's going to tell you exactly what med and what dosage you should be taking at what time, and yeah, and having those custom schedules is pretty handy, and it just shows that they're continuing to be thoughtful about issues that we might have on our day to day. Regarding the health sharing, especially I think with maybe some developmentally disabled folks, but lots of other reasons it can be useful. But just for your loved ones or people in your family network or whoever you choose to get notifications on some health things that you're having. Sure, like I mentioned earlier with the AFib, right? That would be great, especially if I wasn't able to notice that these alerts were happening and that another family member could, that they could alert me to the issue at hand. But same thing with the other, going the other direction, to have like one of my elderly grandparents be able to share their health, and they may not be savvy with the tech, but at least I could interpret it for them and hopefully help them in a pinch.
I think you really nailed it. I think for anybody who's forgetful, like I'm very forgetful, and I know that there are medical conditions that can cause you to be also very forgetful, and that can be very helpful to have that persistent medication reminder because you might forget, and that can have very drastic consequences in some instances. So I think, yeah, I think you've got it. It's just more inclusive, it's not something that we're using personally, but I'm certain it's going to be invaluable for many, many people, to be able to have that routine just built into the tech.
And something I don't know, it'd be interesting, is I'm sure that those can even compound on each other, right? The medications and the health sharing. Let's say that you have one of your prime caregivers who's with you much of the time that gets those notifications as well, and also gets alerted about a medication, or it could just be helpful for the whole team.
I also noticed that there is an export to PDF button, which is really handy. So if you're speaking with your physician or going to the hospital, you can simply print off a list of all of your medications and dosage and frequency, etc., which is pretty handy.
I didn't know that, but that could be really, really useful because I know that's something that you technically should have is like an emergency plan where you've got all your medications, but sometimes you do that you print that out 5 years ago, it goes on the fridge, and then you forget about it. So if you've got some tech that you're using every day, it's got to be up to date. So that's a great. I didn't know that, but that would be really, really helpful. Just be able to print something off, or in a pinch, you could pull up your phone and show somebody what's going on and what you're taking.
Taylor, what about live captions? Yeah, that was a horrible transition. I'm sorry, brother.
Live captions are really useful for those who are hard of hearing or any kind of hearing impairment. And what it will do is it will uh, transcribe conversations, audio or video in real time so you can follow along with, conversations, audio or video.
I'm sure it comes from probably like the Siri engine. I'm not sure, but it's really right. Just dictation worked in reverse, and it's pretty
Hmm.
handy that it's come far enough where it can recognize most all conversations and be able to put them up on screen as text.
Ian, what about sound recognition? I know there's been some new advancements there.
Yeah, yeah. So the sound actions for switch control, I believe they're calling it, and that it came out in iOS 15, but it seems like not many know about it and it's underutilized. But it's just another input for switch control. So instead of using maybe one of your drive controls, to interact with switches, or maybe you have a separate switch, this allows you to use a sound. And so there is, I don't know, dozens of sounds that they've included, but it's things like, clucks or psh or there's a variety of sounds that you can make with your mouth. And how this is useful is, for me, I'm on a ventilator at night when I'm sleeping, and I have a cuff inflated, so no air is getting into my mouth or passing my vocal cords, so I can't speak at that time. And if I need someone's help, I'm gonna make some clucking sounds, basically. But if no one was there, if no one was able to come to my rescue, I now can utilize these sounds to interact with switch control on my phone. So I could, at least make a phone call or make a text. I wouldn't be able to make any sound other than, on the phone call, but usually, they would know that there's a problem if I'm making no sound. But there's a lot of people out there who are nonverbal, but can make a consistent sound, and for them, they may not have the dexterity to use a switch, but they may be able to utilize some sound with their voice to interact with the phone. The one limitation that I've seen with it is, I really would love them to come out with maybe like some switch control profiles, because right now I would have to change it every night from my chair, switches and such, into these voice sounds, and that's a little tedious, and right now I'm not willing to do that. But if they could offer just a profile, so I could just switch from night profile to day profile, or even better, have it roll over at a certain time, those kind of options would improve that new feature.
Continuing off on the using sounds with your iPhone, and going back to our features for people who are hard of hearing, there's also a new sound recognition system with iOS 16, which you can train to listen to specific sounds from your environment. So this could be maybe your specific doorbell ring, or the sound your stove makes when it's reached the right temperature. So this is really cool. I know that there was previous versions of iOS, there was versions for detecting common things like alarms and dog barking and glass breaking, but now you can further customize it and train sounds that are very specific to you. So maybe, whatever that is, like I just said, your doorbell, or things that are important for you to hear in your environment.
Yeah, and that helps out particularly for those with vision impairment, being able to receive those notifications. Also, with the door detection in the magnifier, I think that is such a cool feature to be able to hold your phone up and actually not only find the door, but also be able to hear what signs or labels are written around the door to assist you. I think that just madness. I love the direction that we're moving with these accessibility features.
Yeah, that reminds me of even something else that I think's wonderful. And on the new iPad Pros and even all the new phones that are, at least Pro Maxes, is LiDAR, right? The ability to do LiDAR in your home. And I can see some serious value in the future of, let's say, you have someone who's recently injured, and they're getting a wheelchair, and they don't know how they're driving and how that chair is going to work inside their home. But when you could create a lidar map of that home and have someone maybe just put on some VR glasses and drive through a gym, and all they're seeing is their actual home. I mean, that's really really cool. And the opportunities there are endless. And then you think about even in the real estate world that people could go and explore a house across the country. Um, but as that lidar improves and you get more and more detail, I'm excited to see what benefits that will have for us in the future.
I think the last thing that we wanted to touch on was the updated UI user interface for the Home app on your phone. And this is the location you go to control all of your smart devices on your phone if you're using the Apple ecosystem. And I love it. It's so much nicer and updated. I think it'd been a long time since the app had received an update, and it's much more concise and better organized. And I find it works a lot better for just navigating with voice control and switch control as well. What do you guys think of the updated version of the Home app?
I love it. It did seem to look clunky. I didn't think it was clunky before, but after I got the new one, it was like, yeah, this is sexy, this is smooth, and it's just much easier to navigate. We were talking a little bit earlier, but yeah, having the smaller buttons just allows so much more to fit on the screen. And if you have, I don't know, I have probably 24 different lights in my house that are controlled by the Home app, as well as 5 fans and several shades and other things. And that starts really occupying some space, and just scenes, right? I probably have 15 different scenes, and just to be able to see a lot more of those than I could before is wonderful. So yeah, big fan of the new Home app.
Last question for you, Ian. What would you like to see improved with the next iOS?
All right. What would I like to see improved? I mean, I've mentioned a few things kind of as we've gone along. But one deficiency I see is, I mentioned my favorite accessibility feature is voice control, and I'm really sticking to that. However, there could be some better suggestion options, right? When you use the correct that command, and you get just a bunch of emojis as options to correct your words, it's not as valuable as it could be. And I think many of us that come from Dragon really appreciate the suggestions that they offer. And at the least, we could have homonyms, right? I want every homonym to be available when I say correct. That if it's the word two, I better get TO, TWO, TOO, and the number two as corrected suggestions. So yeah, I do feel that we could utilize a little work on the correct that and the suggestion options. Um, Spelling mode is wonderful. It's brand new, and I know it's continued to improve, but there's some things that can be fine tuned there. Currently, when you're trying to capitalize something or select that, or it will sometimes just select some weird characters. I'm not sure how much you guys have both explored the spelling mode, but you'll see as you go that it can be a little unpredictable with what it's capitalizing, deleting, or selecting. Those kind of things. Um, I don't know if I spoke to this, but one other issue is within voice control is so often there are commands kind of hidden below the surface that people don't know about. And usually you can use the command show actions on a number or a name of an element to dive further into what you can do with that element. And this is extremely common within the phone app, both in voicemail or just like a missed call, a recent call. Um, if you actually say show actions for 7 or whatever number you're trying, you'll see that there's a lot more that you can do with each of um, those elements or phone numbers or people than you realized. So yeah, a way to emphasize that and a way for people to really know that feature exists. And kind of mentioned this earlier, a pie in the sky dream never will happen, but the ability to use voice control through a third-party headset, right? Often the headsets available, like an AirPod, isn't going to work for everybody, and but Apple is all about Apple, and they I appreciate that, right? There's a lot of value to that, but um, we'll see if they offer a third-party headset option to use. but that's it. I mean, overall, I don't see any other ecosystem or accessibility features that provide me with the independence that Apple's does. And yeah, I'll always nitpick on little things, but overall, I I can keep up with able-bodied quite well, in my opinion, and I'm extremely appreciative of the attention to detail that Apple's done to its accessibility features.
Ian, it's been wonderful to be able to pick your brain in terms of iOS accessibility features. I know not only will our viewers learn a lot from this, but I think Taylor, Ian, and myself learned a whole bunch today from you. So really appreciate that.
Hey, thanks for spreading the word, guys, because it's often just single calls that I'm taking to try to help the individuals out there learn how to really utilize voice control and stuff, and love seeing it being expressed on a bigger platform.